always wanted to break a Guinness World Record as a kid. And I was like, all right, what world record has to do with t-shirt? I had like an out-of-body experience where everything felt like my body was a shell. And like I literally could see myself from the outside. So it got wild. I almost died. So my emotional and like mental reframe of that is, well, let's just see what's possible.
Welcome back to Real Investing, where we talk about real investing for everyday investors. Tim Harridge with my buddy, Brian Harper. And my good friend, I almost said our good friend, my good friend, Tom Rauen. Tom,
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for having barbecue lunch with me earlier as we sit here and look at the beautiful Cowboys Death Star. You know that's what we call that? That's Jerry's tomb. It's the Death Star. That's what that is. So if you're watching online, you see the Cowboys Stadium behind us. 1-800 t-shirts is what it says on your shirt.
Yeah.
The shirt I'm wearing was made by 1-800 t-shirts. Spoiler, it's not a t-shirt. Why don't we just start there? What the hell is, because do people call 800 numbers anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
They call us all the time.
This says t-shirts.com. So tell me what that is. What do you do?
Yeah. So branded apparel for businesses. So everything from hats, jackets, polos, dress shirts, t-shirts. 1-800 t-shirts is the brand, but we do much more than just t-shirts. So any swag, anything that you can put your logo on, we can print for you.
And why you hold a Guinness Book of World Record?
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Own a t-shirt business and always wanted to break a Guinness World Record as a kid. So I love marketing as well. And how do I create like experiences and stuff that's memorable? And I was like, all right, what world record has to do with t-shirts? So I went on the website, Googled it, and it was like wearing the most t-shirts at once. Like how many t-shirts can you put on at once?
And
What do you think the record was?
108.
All right, so the record was 245.
I would have guessed like 3 because at that point I would lose interest, but it was 245.
Yes, I put on 247 and broke the record.
You just walk around for a couple hours, or
No, I almost died. So it's a lot of weight. Like that many shirts, you're like, I was like the Michelin man.
He was like
type
a
of
short
thing.
Michelin man. Really like a bowling ball made out of with arms that kind of stuck.
Yeah. So after like 175 shirts, the weight on my shoulders and stuff, like I lost all circulation in my hands. So my hands went numb first, and then my arms went completely numb. And then I wasn't sure at some point what time like it would trigger my body, be like, hey, this is not good, like a fight or flight.
what age was
type of thing.
this?
It was like 10 years ago.
Oh, so it's recent.
Yeah. And so it kept happening, and I had like an out-of-body experience where everything felt like my body was a shell, and like I literally could see myself from the outside. So it got wild.
I think there's I'm trying to find a lesson here, Tim.
The lesson is
No, wait, no.
stop at 3.
No. The lesson here is like if you want something, you have, like most of the time, if you want it, you will have to go through pain. Because before we push record on today, we're talking about marathons and the mental and the physical and equating that to entrepreneurism. Wearing 247 shirts and having to like, oh, by the way, I can't feel anything.
An out of body experience. I mean,
With shirts, but also it's like with not disparaging at all, how ridiculous that is to almost like not die, but like lose feeling in your arms for wearing shirts.
what size was the last one?
20XL.
Holy
20XL.
Yeah.
And
And that's like a queen size bed sheet.
And how did they get them off you?
So
Like a saw?
Yeah.
Or was it jaws of life?
That's
basically, so putting them on, it took 6 people to put on, to be able to like stretch them over my arms and my head. And then as soon as I got done, like we had medical personnel there and everything. Like there was a crowd of 200 or 300 people watching and cheering you on.
shirt.
Yeah, because
Did someone tell you maybe
we did like
died?
this whole big event and stuff. Like the guy from Guinness World Records came in from London, and we sold sponsorships on t-shirts to raise money for juvenile diabetes. So we raised like $5,000 at the event. And they knew as we got close to record, like medically I was not good. The shirts were above my mouth, above my nose. So like I can barely breathe at this point. My face in the pitch, the final pictures kind of look funny because my entire head is like purple. And so as soon as the record got broken, I had a huge adrenaline rush. I stood up, I was sitting in a chair, But then immediately, like, one of the like head security guys it was at a casino. One of the head security guys and then the paramedics immediately like came up on stage. They started cutting him with medical scissors, and then the security guy, like, if you can imagine a big like pro football player ripping phone books in half, he was doing that with like 10 t-shirts at a time and just ripping them off of me. Like,
Is that
10 at a
on
time.
video?
I don't think they recorded that. They made that record. It was me. He said, I talked to the guy the next day, and he's like, dude, my upper body was so sore from ripping shirts off. So
But what's funny is watching you talk about this, because I can imagine the pain, the anguish, the just, you know, all that, but the amount of joy that's in your face recounting it right now is really fun to watch.
Well,
Listening
since
right
then,
here.
well, I'm going to move on past this because we're doing short episodes this
Oh
week.
yeah.
Dude, since then, now you run 100-mile races, like, until you're about to die. What is it? Do you want to die, or just see how many times you can almost die? What is that drives you? And then we're going to get into the whole investing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to pinpoint this because I've come close a few times. You know,
Intentionally.
almost like died on the side of a mountain, you know, climbing mountains and running 100-mile races and a lot of other things. And I think I like seeing what's possible, pushing the threshold mentally, physically, emotionally on different things to see, like, all right, what is possible? And I'm fascinated and inspired when I see other people do that and they push that threshold. And I think it passes over into business and even investing in real estate and stuff, because it's like, all right, I see somebody else doing something, hitting a big pinnacle. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could probably do that too. And so it takes what most people probably have a mental or an emotional limiter of, like, I don't want to take on that risk. I don't want to try that because of that fear of failure or something else. My emotional and like mental reframe of that is, well, let's just see what's possible and let's push the boundary and let's push the limit and let's try and just keep going. So I don't have like a filter on like where that's at.
I love this conversation. I was, because we have this conversation all the time. And I was talking to Paul, one of my guys, this morning in the car, because there's a guy, I'm in the SMU executive MBA program right now, and I was talking to one of the guys who, because he has no risk tolerance, like, you know, and as an entrepreneur, you have to have like no risk aversion, you know, and the way I put it is, like, with him, he has a fairly high floor, but he has a fairly high ceiling, but he's in that range. But as an entrepreneur, we have negative floor, but we have zero ceiling, you know, and it's just interesting to see where people mentally fall. And I get it when you have kids, you have family, everybody has their different background, but ultimately it comes down to what risk tolerance do you have to be able to put up, and how much pain can you put up with?
Yeah.
So your brother Bill was on this show a couple months ago and talked about dairy farming and kind of you guys' upbringing. So if you want to learn more about that, go back to the episode with Bill. But when I first met you guys in December of 2022, it was our first meeting at the Boardroom Mastermind. It's my first and your first, just happened to be. We're at the same table. Here we are. It's been, what, 2.5, 3 years almost? And you introduced yourself as the fast food landlord.
Yeah.
Tell us about, what is that?
Yeah. So as we started growing 100 t-shirts and other things, we're looking at how can we create passive income. And I knew real estate was definitely the path we wanted to go on. Start off with a fourplex, quickly learned I do not want to own anything where people live. And I was like, this is an absolute nightmare. And there's stories for days on that. And I got introduced by someone in our town that was doing Dollar Generals and learned about triple net lease, where, you know, the tenant is covering all the property taxes, the insurance, all the maintenance, and everything else, mowing the grass, plowing the snow, you name it, everything. Like, you don't even go to the property. And then, you know, he told me about, he's like, yeah, just drive down the main street in our town. He's like, Starbucks and Arby's and Applebee's and Midas Muffler and McDonald's. He's like, they're not owned by the corporation. And I'm like, wait, what? They don't own their own thing? And I was like, they're paying rent to somebody? So I was like, yeah, I want them as my tenant because I don't want to deal with, the crazy tenants that I had in this fourplex. And so then that's where we went down that path. And, it started what I call fast food landlord, because most people don't even know that you could be the landlord to these, national tenants. And the other great part is, an apartment, you're worried about them paying rent every month or paying rent late, you're chasing it down, and then they're on like a 6-month or maybe a 1-year lease. And then you got to find a new tenant, you got to fix everything and all this shit. And with as I got diving into this net lease world, I'm like, wait a minute, these guys are leasing the property for 15, 20, 25 years. That's amazing. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous. So it was like fitting all the boxes. And with the main business and family and everything else that we do, I needed something that was super passive, super hands off. And that's kind of what steered us into that asset class.
One thing about that, how many locations do you have that the national brand is paying full lease, but it ain't even there anymore? Because I've seen it all the time where it's like you have these zombie locations where they still pay their rent, but they just moved locations because it didn't fit.
Yeah. So all of ours, they're in there, they're operating, and they're paying every month. It's amazing. Like we've got no vacancies and everyone's paying. But yeah, there is examples where, even if, an example we had in our town was IHOP. They closed down, but because it's a corporate guaranteed lease, they had 7 years left on the lease. So they're going to keep paying for this rent for the next 7 years, even though they're not operating. Because for them, they eliminate the costs associated with operating the business, paying all the employees and utilities and stuff like that. So it's minimal, the rent that they're paying on that. But then during that time, either they can find another tenant to sublease to, or we can find another tenant to move in and backfill it, or possibly someone to buy the building. And so in those cases, if they owe us 7 years, if we find a new tenant in that time, we could negotiate a deal with the new tenant, then also go to IHOP and say, listen, we'll let you out of this lease if you pay 5 years worth of rent versus 7, what you owe us. And so we're collecting the 5 years up front, plus we're getting the new rent from a new tenant. And Tim, you think you can do that with an apartment ever?
I know you can't.
Well, that's the thing is like, that's the point I was trying to make is like, if it's single family, if nobody's there, you're just not, you're losing money.
Yeah, so it's unbelievable. And, not everyone's like that. You've got to really look at the lease structure. Is it corporate guarantee? And there's a lot that goes into it that, someone just getting into it may not know, some of these things, but there's some really big advantages to it if you know what you're doing.
So I've got to know him pretty well, so I get to kind of lead in for him. At one point in time, you also owned part of the Field of Dreams, right?
Yeah.
And every time I tell someone that, they're like, the Field of Dreams. I'm like, yeah, like the movie. And they're like, oh, like the Field of Dreams. It's in your kind of hometown area, backyard. You said there was an investment group that kind of owned it, but then I guess the Major League came in, built a stadium, and that was an Airbnb a little bit. I find that super intriguing, but I'm actually going somewhere. And then you were sharing with Ryan before that you're in the Goldman Sachs 10,000. You were in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. Ryan just recently started that. If you had to look back over, the last 15, 20 years, you come from a dairy farming family. What put you on this path of business building, business acquisition, property acquisition, investment? Like, why aren't you just a dairy farmer? Like, what do you think it is that put you on this path?
So the rest of my family is all in agriculture, farming, dairy cattle. I'm the one that's not. And so maybe it's finding my own path. And, even though at my core, that's a lot of the values and stuff that I have is that gritty farm, work mentality, small town, we grew up in a town of 1,000 people type of thing. But then, like venturing out and saying, all right, what's possible? What else is out there? and, continuing to, push that growth. And I like that, seeing that, personally and professionally and kind of everything in between.
What do you get out of that growth? I remember we did a boardroom in San Diego, and there was a gentleman that was kind of part of the group that was just recently leaving the SEAL team, and you and several of the guys went and got to work out kind of in a little area that most people don't get to work out in. You're talking about, you almost killed yourself with a t-shirt. You run 100-mile races on the side of a mountain. That pushing yourself, that finding out what's possible. Is there a destination to that, or is there always another challenge?
There's always another challenge, because we're all going to die at some point. We've got a short time on Earth. We have no clue how long that is, whether it's 40 years, 50 years, 70 years, 80 years. My grandpa's 97 right now. I'm hoping it's 100 years. But I want to know, like, when I get to the finish line, I squeezed every last drop out of life, and there's nobody at my funeral that will say, gosh, I don't think you quite lived it fullest. Right? Like, I want to live it 100% to the fullest, do everything, try everything, experience it with as many other people, great people, like, meeting you and everyone else here at the boardroom and stuff like that, and be part of that journey with others. And I think what kind of brings it all together is, I've noticed this pattern with a lot of the businesses I've either invested in or operate in. It's they create experiences that you can enjoy and do with others, that are like memories, that create relationships, that create stories that then are told year after year. We look back on all the things at the Field of Dreams and what we've done there with our family, and being there and playing catch with my dad on Father's Day, and then with my kids and running the bases with them, and staying overnight in the house, from the movie, and all these things like that. Those created memories and experiences and stuff that we cherish. And so I always look for like and same with running 100 miles, or getting up with, the crew and going and doing the Buds Camp, the Navy SEAL Buds Camps. Like, that's something I will never forget the rest of my life. And I also have like a bond with the people I did those experiences with. So I think it's just living it to the fullest, and finding like what creates those cool experiences that really make you feel like you're living and you're energized, and it just continues to like build upon that.
So what comes first with that? Is it work to live, live to work? Like, because if you have all these properties that have restaurants in them, or the fast food landlord, you have the 1-800 t-shirts. I'm sure you have several other businesses we probably won't have time to talk about. How do you find the time to manage all that, but then also go on a 10-hour run, or train for a 10-hour or 24-hour run? Like, how do you do that balance?
I've got an amazing team on anything I'm involved with. And I was just thinking about today, like, I've not actually done anything by myself. Even if it's running a 100-mile race, I've got my pacers, I've got my wife crewing me, I've got good friends that are there, making sure at all the aid stations, getting the right nutrition and stuff to keep going to the next aid station. So even though I'm physically running by myself, it's still a team event. Like, I couldn't do that alone. All the businesses, I've got either partners or operators that are, making it all happen. So I think it's like finding the right people to surround yourself with that want to help all the things happen, help you win, and win alongside you. And so, yeah, it's just like work to live or live to work. And none of the things I do feel like work to me. I enjoy all of them. They feed a different passion or a different energy level within me. The creative side of me and the visionary loves the t-shirt industry, because every project's different. Every customer we work with is something different and unique. And I love seeing all the different businesses we get to work with. So, that's exciting for me. It's not work. And then the same with the investing part. Like, I'm always trying to solve a puzzle. And to me, it's more of a game than it's work.
Follow up to that, the people aspect. What comes first, the role that you're looking for, or finding a good person and then putting that person in that, and then finding a role for that person?
Typically, it's the role. It's like, what do we need done, or what am I more and more, I'm always figuring out like, what am I struggling with, or what is draining my energy, so I can focus strictly on the things that are giving me energy, and I can find the complementary person that that role gives them energy, but it drains me, so they can take that stuff off my plate. And I've had that perfect synergy in a few of the businesses. One being the brewery that I co-own. My partner in that, we were like the perfect yin and yang on the stuff that drains him. That's my wheelhouse. That gives me energy, and the stuff that drains me, like that's his side of things. So like it's just like this perfect balance where then it feels easy and it doesn't feel like work.
Well, and I was actually about to compliment you on balance, because a lot of people hear 100-miler and all that, and they think, oh, well, he doesn't drink, he doesn't have fun, he's got to sleep 12 hours a day. Like, but Tom owns a brewery, and Tom will sit down and have a beer with you just like the next guy. Tom will sleep 4 hours and then go run a half marathon for fun on a Saturday. But you mentioned the brewery, and I was actually going to bring that up. You also have the Dubuque Legacy Fund, and this is a private equity fund where you allow accredited investors only to invest. And in your hometown's Dubuque, right? And you've done a lot to bring business and help business succeed. And remember, you talked about that small town of 1,000. Maybe talk a little bit about how, I mean, the rest of your family maintains that dairy part of the industry, of the community, but I mean, you're really kind of helping the community grow by being an investor and helping them grow their investment accounts or retirement accounts.
Yeah. So with the Dubuque Legacy Fund, it was like, all right, we've got opportunities here. If I go down our main street where we have all these commercial properties, and I see that Taco Bell is owned by an investor in California, and this other one's owned by an investor or an equity fund out in New York or somewhere else, I'm like, how is that making our community better or growing that at all? So I was like, we might as well pool together investors within our own community and bring all that back. Because if we're the ones going to Starbucks every day and essentially helping pay the rent,
Right.
the rent might as well be coming back to us versus going out somewhere else. So that was part of putting that together, and then just giving people the opportunity to invest in an alternative form where most people grow up thinking, all right, I need to invest. They know that, and they think it's S&P 500 and 401k. Like they think there's basically only two options. Like, no, you can invest in real estate and in a fund or a syndication without having to be the operator. You can be a limited partner and invest passively and get the same or better returns than the market. And also, when you talk about community building, you can make an impact in the community as well.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I've learned recently, partly because of Goldman Sachs, partly because of SMU, is like I did financial accounting last semester at SMU, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand financial statements, balance sheets, all the things. But I still had a disconnect of why that was important. I understood, like, looking at this from terms of, looking at S&P 500 or Fortune 500 companies. But I went into like the Goldman program, you're like, oh, you need to have these good financials to invest, to get investors, to get lendable, and to get lending. And it was just interesting that, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, I think as a small entrepreneur or just an everyday person, just because a company is an S&P or AT&T Stadium, or it's the same thing, it's just a different comma, it's a different size of business. So all the things these big companies need, these small companies need. All the things that the big companies are looking for, the same thing. So the whole point I'm trying to get to is, like, as an investor, you could invest in those S&P, or you could invest in the mom and pop thing.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. So most small business owners, and I was this way for a long time, been doing the t-shirt business for 20 years. A small business owner starts out because initially they were an operator. They liked doing the craft of whatever it is. It's the E-Myth, from the book, The E-Myth, where if you were a screen printer, you love screen printing, but then you don't know all the other facets of the business, the baker, the plumber, whatever trade it is. You get into it and then you realize, wait a minute, this is more. And I think when small entrepreneurs get into it, they're looking to build a business to replace their salary. So they look at it as, can I start this business and can I replace my $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000 salary or whatever that is? But they don't look at it as we're operating a business similar to a big Fortune 500 company or something like that. And when you shift that perspective on it, then you also look at from an investment side, is investing in your own business, in your own company, producing better returns than investing in the S&P 500 or investing in commercial real estate or something else? And it's like, well, if you can't put money into your own company and create a bigger return than that, then what is your goal here? What are you operating that business for? Same with real estate or S&P. Like, you want the biggest return to be able to, generate not only passive income and wealth over time, but to be able to, just keep growing everything, to be able to do the things you want to do, live the lifestyle you want to live. But then that also goes twofold. Some people just create a lifestyle business of what is that thing that you love doing, whether you made 50,000 at it or 50 million. It doesn't feel like work to you, and it gives you that work-life balance of, well, I don't care what that is, but if I can take off every day at 2:00, pick my kids up from school, go to all their sports games and things like that, that's that balance in there of where those priorities are versus, the guy that's working 120 hours a week and he gets to be 65 and says, I missed my entire kid's life growing up. For the sacrifice of that time.
So your brother Bill recently joined the board of directors at Ternus, and several members of your family made a sizable investment and became one of the majority shareholders of our company. It was all by accident. Like, when I became friends with Tom and Bill 3 years ago, I never thought, I kind of thought we'd buy some real estate together, but Ternus didn't even exist at that time. It was never an idea. And not even an idea at that point. And when I look at it now, I
can't believe that.
Well,
I mean, last 15 years, you've been going towards this.
Well, there were thoughts, but it wasn't like, it hadn't taken shape. But
I'm going to interrupt you real quick just because I was talking to a competing a lender the other day because they were inquiring about services, and they're like, Tim just came out of nowhere doing Ternus. I was like, what are you talking about? E2R, and then did it. It's just like it's been this trajectory for at least 10 years.
Right. But he was talking about doing things with people that balance you and people that you enjoy doing life with. And that's kind of where that strategic investment and joining the board of directors came from, is just kind of Bill, more than Tom, even though I love Tom too. Like, Bill and I just started hanging out at every boardroom, and our other friend Tom started, we kind of became like a little three amigo group, and we were hanging out, having fun, and they saw my vision, saw my passion, and they were like, how can we support you? And at first, there was no way other than them being my friends and giving me advice and cheerleading. And then the opportunity came up to buy out the old partners and set us on this new course. But then it's kind of cool. The other thing you said, now Ternus is actually, tomorrow, I'm announcing it, and I can say it now because this won't air. We're launching really an innovative way for the real estate investors, our customers, much like your community in Dubuque, to own part of our company. And so many other hard money lenders, they'll do a debt fund, and you can own part of the debt, but you don't get to own the company. And when the company grows and becomes worth X number, whatever, all you owned ever was that debt, and then they get rid of that debt fund and you're out. And so it's kind of funny to hear you talk about the Starbucks. You said, since we're paying the Starbucks $6 for a coffee anyway, we might as well own the building or help get the rent. We help pay
back, yeah.
And that's kind of the way I'm looking at this Reg CF that we're doing with these customers. And it's why I hope that I hope we don't advertise it at all. I just hope we fill it up with the boardroom members and investors and friends of mine, because how cool would it be to now, because obviously your family invested more than $1,000, but our minimum investment is going to be $1,000. So as little as $1,000, it's $1 a share. You can own 1,000 shares in a company that I intend to grow and scale the way I have some other companies. But even if it doesn't become the next RCN, you get to own what you do business with, and you get to, at least you're investing in something that has some sort of purpose or meaning behind maybe something else you're doing.
Well, to that point, I think it's smart. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of smartness to what you just said.
Hopefully.
I mean,
The legal bill's been paid.
no, but what I was saying, it was good. Is like I think too often people hold on to this idea of 100%. I need to own my company. I need to have 100% of my company. I need to have majority share of my company. I need all the pieces. But all you gotta do is look at the richest people on the planet, and they own like 8% of their company.
Yeah.
They own like 12% of their company, and it's just like, okay, do you want 100% of a little bit, or do you want 10% of all of it?
Well, to not throw numbers around, but I'll tell you, both of us have a net worth over $1 million each. I don't own 100% of a single company or of a single property. What about you?
No.
Maybe your homestead, right?
Yeah.
Like I literally just thought, maybe that's not true. My homestead, I own 100% of that with my wife, but I still got a partner in that. Like she's my partner, like, especially in Texas. Like she's got half of that. But no, I mean, it's important because so many investors, and this is where I'm gonna tie it into real investing, and then we're gonna talk about your podcast, and we're out of here. So many investors out there are trying to do it all alone, and they don't understand to go 100 miles. You've got to have someone else in charge. Like your wife crews the race, and when he says cruise the race, she's telling him how fast his pace is. Slow down, speed up. You're almost to the next way station. Like, I mean, she's in charge of the race. It's his legs doing it, but she's in charge of it. And the other teammates are waiting, and they're going to check on him, make sure, like, is it time to pull him off the course? Is he okay to finish? Like, is this dude going to die in the next, like, 10 miles,
Well,
you know?
to piggyback off that, I think one of the things that I've been working on as an entrepreneur is to stop being the guy that jumps out of the plane without a parachute. and it's like, yes, you can go run 100 miles, or you can take 5 minutes and plan, oh, we need to get a sprinter van. Oh, I need to have water. Oh, I need to have this. I need to have all this stuff. And then do the 100 miles. So, like, I think as an entrepreneur, like, you know, ready, fire, aim, that's cool and that's a badge of honor, but it's like, you gotta pause on that. And I'm working on that as a.
Let me tell you something, though. I had jumped out of an airplane without a parachute. I was strapped to someone that had a parachute. And that's the whole point. Right? It's a tandem jump, right? It's when you're learning to jump. And the whole point is in business, if you really want to be successful, in my opinion, it's okay to jump out without a parachute. As long as you're attached to someone that has a parachute. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So you and Bill are launching, is it still you and Bill doing it together? You're launching a podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's going to debut in the next couple weeks or months.
Yes.
You've got some episodes in the can.
Yeah.
What's it called? How do people find it? What's it about?
Board of Investors podcast.
Oh, there you go.
And if you need it, people to surround yourself with, and you need a board of investors. And so it's the Board of Investors, and we're bringing basically the top people from the boardroom in every asset class. So, if you look at any board of any company, they diversify the board. So typically it's, an accountant and a lawyer and someone's specialty in marketing, whatever else. So ours is, their specialty and the diversity is, who's the best in land deals and multifamily, fix and flip, wholesaling, triple net lease, you name it, doing mobile home parks, self-storage, all the things. So we're bringing the experts to give that kind of diversified, well-rounded perspective on what's happening in every asset class, who's winning, how are they winning, and sharing their stories, of what's going on. So really looking forward to, meeting some new people, introducing them to everyone else, all the listeners, and bringing the Board of Investors to everyone.
Well, I know a lot of people that you invest with, either on individual projects or in companies, and I know that they all say that you and Bill bring this different perspective and this unique approach to things. So I'm looking forward to listening. I'm sure we'll find it on all the major podcast platforms.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, any parting thoughts or parting shots?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and we're looking forward to having you on the Board of Investors podcast.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being here. You good? Good. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week.